This is Cyber Defense Radio with your host and cybersecurity champion, Annabelle Thomas. Annabelle brings to you another globally recognized cybersecurity executive in the hot seat today.
Sitting in the hot seat today is Greg Hoffer, the CEO of Coviant Software, the company that's behind Diplomat MFT, a managed file transfer solution used by organizations across the world to move sensitive data securely and efficiently. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hi, Annabelle. Thank you for having me back.
Awesome. We're always excited to have you on. Now, I want to start with some exciting news. Coviant Software just released version 9.4 of the Diplomat MFT. Congratulations. I'm sure the team is very excited about that. Can you share a little bit about what's in this latest release that means more to your team, your customers, and especially those in the highly sensitive sectors like healthcare or finance?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We're very proud of the Diplomat MFT 9.4 release, which came out just a few weeks ago. Definitely a lot of effort, so I thank my team for putting all that effort and energy into it. What we like to do here at Coviant Software is attempt to balance the listening to the customers, understanding their needs and their ever-growing and evolving needs with trying to build better security based upon industry standards changes, compliance changes, etc. So with Diplomat MFT 9.4 release, we've added a number of items specific to cybersecurity for enterprise class organizations. And in particular, a few that are aimed specifically at healthcare. As you might know, there's some proposed changes to the HIPAA regulation that should be coming soon that increase the security, and we absolutely laud those efforts to increase security. Healthcare has become quite the target for nefarious actors. The data is just so valuable to try to steal. So enhancements such as role-based authentication to make sure that only the right personnel have access to the right data, single sign-on to allow authentication across your enterprise identity management system, some connection map and ROI reports, some reports aimed specifically at healthcare to understand the threats along the information supply chain, and a variety of other things based upon customer feedback, such as integration with OneDrive, seems to be very popular these days, increasing the security around our SFTP and LDAP. So many things, all aimed at helping customers keep their data more secure while still being as easy to use as possible.
Right, and we'll dive a little bit more into some of those integration and connectivity features. But I know you mentioned healthcare, and that's clearly been a major focus for this 9.4 release. With PHI being one of the most targeted types of data, especially in cyber attacks with the growing threats, the compliance complexity, what specific features or updates in this release are designed to help the healthcare organizations better protect their data?
Yeah, we have a long history of helping organizations of any size protect their data, but healthcare just deals with such a massive amount of volume when you think about all the data flowing into and out of healthcare organizations that contain PHI. There are admission records, clinical trials, billing, invoicing, government regulation reporting. I mean, the list goes on and on. So we strive to increase the security and the operationalization of those file exchanges through the use of strong cryptographic standards, including we recently added some post-quantum computing resistant algorithms to our system as well. So quantum computing is its own topic, but we're aiming toward improving security around that as well. With PGP encryption, so we protect data not only at rest, but also in flight. And I think most importantly recently is just allowing our customers in the healthcare space to take advantage of those security elements that they are adopting right now, such as their strong role-based access control or their integration with their identity management providers. And then dabbling in the upcoming changes with supply chain risk analysis. Annabelle, I personally feel that it's starting to get emphasized, but it's long been underemphasized, is the fact that as secure as any one organization can be, no one organization, take your healthcare provider, obtains this data and just sits on it. It doesn't just sit in that healthcare organization. That information is being passed to service providers, to billing providers, to payment providers, to clinics, to et cetera, et cetera. So that data necessarily flows between systems. And how can any one organization be sure that those with whom they're exchanging data are themselves secure? And so luckily some changes proposed in the upcoming HIPAA regulation advancements do things like emphasize you as a healthcare organization need to know and document and assess all the interactions you have both internally and externally. So we have some features and reports added in 9.4 that help customers with that management of information and assessment of risk.
Right. And I feel like, especially on the compliance side, that's not something that stays the same, that most organizations have figured out or have it down pat. So I know the customers are especially looking forward to that piece of it. Now, when it comes to compliance, I know the HIPAA landscape is always evolving, always changing. How has Coviant been keeping up with some of those newer changes that have been coming out, and how does it help organizations stay compliant without overwhelming the IT teams? Because I know there's a balance to that as well.
Those poor IT teams at any organization, but especially at healthcare, they are overwhelmed with all their day-to-day operations. And to expect those organizations to stay on top of legislation and proposed legislation and guidelines coming from either the government or standards bodies such as NIST, it's a daunting task to try to accomplish all of that. And that's why I feel that we, as a vendor that specifically focuses on the automation and security of file transfers, we're able to provide them a great benefit, because I don't have an IT shop that has to deal with tens of thousands of patient records and thousands of clinicians and all that stuff. Our focus is on making sure that we understand these regulations, both locally and across the whole world, and that we're building things into our software that abstract all those details from our customers. So as a result, we study, we research, we follow all of the information on proposed regulation changes such as HIPAA. We bake that into our software. And now these IT teams don't have to spend their time and risk getting it wrong. They can just rely upon us as a trusted vendor and use, simple point and click. I'm going to transfer this file and be confident that it adheres to regulations.
Right. And I know your customers have taken great trust in Coviant because they know you guys stay up to date on the compliance or following with those regulations, following with legislator and what's coming out with those changes. So it almost kind of takes the burden off of their shoulders of knowing what they're buying into. Now, I want to shift world gears a little bit and talk about some of the enterprise enhancements. I know two standouts in the release that you mentioned earlier was the role-based access control and the single sign-on integration. Can you walk us through a little bit more about that, how that works, and then what it means for the organizations who are trying to manage those complex file transfer workflows?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So a lot of and this is largely based upon feedback from our customers as well. As we deploy our software into more and more organizations and enterprises adopt our software, we learn from them how they're using it and the environment in which they wish to use it securely. And so many of our customers said that we have adopted enterprise-grade identity access control, authentication systems, et cetera. And Diplomat MFT has a long history of allowing you to be very flexible in how you configure the administration of the software. However, the flexibility was limited previously to a few roles assigned to users that were static at the time. Now with 9.4, what we've done is we fully integrated with identity providers through single sign-on and allowed customers to define their own roles through a role-based access control system. So for example, inside Diplomat MFT, a typical customer might have 10,000 different workflows that pull files from different systems, SAP, some other ERP system, a network file share, a data source over there, Azure Data Lake, and move those files anywhere within or outside the organization. However, oftentimes those data flows are specific to a specific department, whether it's HR or accounting or the IT team, or the clinician team. And so with Diplomat MFT 9.4, you can actually provide as granular as you want permissions based upon roles. Define your own HR team, define your own accounting team, define your own set of clinicians, and then limit access to the transaction workflows, the configuration that they are only required to see. So as a result, you get this least privileges model where you're ensuring that the data that people have access to and the mechanism by which they can transfer those files is strictly controlled and fully audited.
Right. Now, you mentioned some of that was kind of brought out by real world user case and customers that kind of noticed that that's what they were looking for. So it's great to see that Coviant is responding to those needs. Now, I know in recent versions, they've added integrations with both SharePoint and OneDrive. What's driving some of these connectivity options, and how do they fit into your vision of modern and secure collaboration?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that speaks very well to us listening to our customers. It was the prior version where we released integration with SharePoint. Now, I'm a bit old, so when I think of SharePoint, you would like to think it's gone. It's nobody uses it anymore. There's so many newer systems, but the fact is that SharePoint is still widely used by a number of organizations, and all for good reasons. Especially now that SharePoint is part of the Office 365 environment. So it's much easier to manage and maintain SharePoint sites and allow customers to distribute information both internally and externally through these SharePoint sites, SharePoint portals. We heard from customers that they love all of the stuff we do, the connectivity to Amazon S3 or Azure or SFTP or network shares, but man, can't you help us with SharePoint? And so we listened to them and added SharePoint, as is the case, whether it's with customers or my kids or anyone you work with, Annabelle. As soon as you give them one thing, it's, well, now that you gave me that, can you give me something else? And we are happy to do that based upon the feedback and the positive review and adoption of SharePoint. We heard from the customers that, hey, we also do OneDrive stuff. It's part of the Office 365 ecosystem. We leverage it heavily inside our organization. Man, wouldn't it be nice if I could use your simple point and click mechanism to transfer files into and out of OneDrive? And so we responded, and 9.4 has our simple model of point and click file transfer automation where the source or destination can very easily be OneDrive.
Right, and I love that concept where it's basically a continuous feedback loop in a way where you listen to the customers, you listen to what they need, develop it, and then just continue on from there, similar to what you mentioned with your kids. Now, can you talk a little bit about how that customer feedback influences your product decisions and maybe any sneak peek on what's next?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we listen very much to our customers, and I think they are collectively a lot smarter than we will ever be. So we put a lot of emphasis into listening to what they need, how they use our software, and what changes are coming about in their environment. So I think based upon the feedback and the usage of our customer base, it's pretty clear that larger and larger enterprises are looking to better manage, audit, control, and secure their file transfers. So I think our forward path is up and to the right of more enterprise class capabilities, whether that's large deployments with high availability computing to handle massive workloads or geographically distributed clusters, whether it's increased security algorithms based upon this whole post-quantum computing thing we're talking about, or more connectivity options. And that's one of the cool things about what we do and why I like my job is, nobody thought about a OneDrive connector 5 or 10 years ago. And now it's widely adopted. And as new services come out that provide value to our customers or to large healthcare organizations or any organization, we can see that adoption of these new services and integrate with those services based upon that customer feedback. But generally speaking, it's a great question. Where are we going? It's continued enterprise capabilities, continued security enhancements, better interconnectivity with other services, all while maintaining our discipline and our philosophy of make this as easy to use as possible.
Right. Now, Greg, this has been a really insightful conversation. Before we close out, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners and our audience about the Diplomat MFT version 9.4 or anything else to come?
Yeah, I'm just excited that more people will get to learn about our product. I think, Annabelle, there's a lot of people out there who are diligently working very hard at certain tasks and activities in their IT department. And unfortunately, maybe they don't know about us and they're spending their time developing Python scripts or PowerShell scripts or doing things in ways that could be done easier so they could focus their attention on better, more important things. So the way I like to say it is, if you're an IT person and you're spending your time writing scripts, wouldn't you rather be learning about AI or, the next major service that you could be leveraging that's cool and fun? And so we take care of the plumbing for you guys of securing file transfer so you can focus on fun stuff.
I love that. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Big things are happening at Coviant Software with the release of Diplomat MFT 9.4, which is bringing enterprise class control, healthcare specific enhancements, and secure modern integrations all in one platform. You can learn more at their website, coviantsoftware.com. That is Coviant software.com. Greg, thank you so much for joining me in the hot seat today.
Thanks, Annabelle.
You've been listening to Cyber Defense Radio. Stay tuned next time for another amazing and informative episode. CyberDefenseRadio.com is proudly part of the Cyber Defense Media Group, where InfoSec knowledge is power.
Cyber Defense TV and Cyber Defense Radio have launched 24/7/365 live streams. Visit them online today at Cyber Defense TV and Cyber Defense Radio with your host and cybersecurity champion and my